So good afternoon everyone. It has been a while that we haven't had a chance to learn the sutra. So today let's get back to the sutra, the teaching of the Buddha. And the sutra called Vitakasanthanna Sutta. Okay. Sutra means discourse. So in this sutra, it talks about the removal of the distracting thought, or how to stop the mind from an unwholesome state when you meditate. So I'm going to walk you through the sutra, and I'm going to share with you how I approach the sutra and how you should approach the sutra when you study by yourself. How should you analyze what kind of thing that you should look for when you study, and how can you relate it to the previous sutra that you have learned, or the Dhamma that you have been learning in your whole life. Because every single Dhamma, they have something connected. As a Buddhist monk, we meditate a lot, right? And when we meditate, we dealing with the mind. The mind is the wandering element. It's everywhere. And these days, there are many scientific research that confirm that wandering mind is an unhappy mind. The mind think a lot. The mind think very fast. The mind think very far. And they did the research with many people. They found out that 47% of time that human being we spend, we get lost in thought. Get lost in thought of the past, worry about the future. We spend almost 50% of our life on a daily basis not being present fully of whatever in front of you. When you eat, you always check your phone, your email, watch television, have the music turned on. So you do 100 things in one time. When you work, you also have the music on. You also have another screen of iPad. You also have the phone nearby, your computer. So your mind is everywhere. Even though you may feel like, I can handle this, I'm a multitasking person. But through the lens of Buddhism, you habit your mind to be confused, because the mind can only perceive one thing at a time. You should be mindful of what you do. When you get the job done, then you can go back to your phone, check your Facebook or WhatsApp, whatever. But as you work, you focus 100% on your work. When you eat, you should fully eating, enjoy eating, know what you eat, how much should you eat, right? Vegetable, meat, rice, not just chewing something in your mouth while checking your phone. You don't know what you're eating. You don't know, you don't feel the taste fully, you don't feel the texture fully, and you don't know when you should swallow it. You eat, you check email, and then you take another spoon of rice, you chew it, you swallow it. But your mind is here with the phone. And then when you go back to meditate, you may be wondering, how come it's so difficult for the mind to be still? This is very obvious, because you habituate your mind to do 100 things at one time instead of one thing at a time. Okay, so reflect on it. This is how we go through life. We experience all kind of emotion. The mind gets distracted with all kind of things. You get angry in the morning, you're happy in the afternoon, and then late afternoon you're upset again. And when you come home, you get fear. When you wake up in the morning, you're in a good mood, you meditate, you have a good mind. The mind is bombarding with all kind of stimuli the moment you wake up until the time that you go to bed. It is said about in average, we think about, about 60,000 stories per day at least, in average. For some people, they think more than that. In one day, you're talking about 60,000 things that the mind thinks, and that's a lot of things. You can try to count when you wake up tomorrow before you go to breakfast. How many things that the mind think already? What was the first thing that come to your mind this morning when you first wake up? Do you remember? And then you go from there. So understand it. And the Buddha mentioned many places about the nature of the mind, about how to deal with the mind. Look at one teaching. He said, agitated, unsteady mind, difficult to guard, like a fish. When you throw the fish on the dry land, the fish doesn't like it. Okay, the fish wants to come back, to go back to the water. It is very frustrated to stay on the dry lands. For the mind, it's also difficult to subdue. It's hard to see, very sudden, wander wherever it will. Your job is to guard the mind. Simple explanation and simple instruction of what the mind is and how should we deal with the mind? Sometimes we can think of the mind as the monkey. The monkey is the animal that doesn't like to stay still for long. It's keep on jumping from tree to trees. The mind is like that. We don't even finish the first thought. We start thinking of the second thought. All the time. If you pause and you zoom in closely into your mind each moment, you start seeing, oh, my mind is always running, always thinking, non-stop. It's become habit. In the teaching of the Buddha, it's about dealing with this mind. How can we maintain the peace and calm state of the mind, the wholesome state of the mind? Okay. If there's one thing in this world that when it gets trained and developed, that can bring peace and happiness to our life, and that thing is called the mind. Just one thing. If you train the mind, your mind in good condition, your physical action and verbal action will be wholesome, will be good. Right? What you say and what you do is the manifestation of the condition of your mind. When you get angry, you say bad word, you say loud word. When your mind is peace and calm, you will not say something like that. You see the difference, right? So the mind needs to be trained, and it's everywhere. And that is why, to me, this statistic is no surprise. The Buddha talked about this long time ago, very long time ago. So when it comes to meditation, how do we deal with this? With thoughts. Thought is one of the hindrances, right? There are 5 hindrances. As a meditator, in all levels, we are facing the same obstacle. One of these, a few of these, or all of these in each session that we sit. The first one is called sense desire. The minds go after something it's cling on, it's something it's like. Human, animal, object, entertainment, you name it. And the second thing is agitated mind. It's ill will, that you get angry at someone when you come to the meditation room. It's going to be difficult for you to sit and calm the mind down. And the third one is like a sloth, like sleepiness. Okay? I'm fresh, you don't feel fresh, you don't feel relaxed. And number 4 is restlessness, the mind keep on thinking. And number 5, you have doubt of your experience. What I see at the moment, is it real, or is my imagination, or did I practice correctly, or is this okay? This and that. You start having questions in your practice. So these are the 5 hindrances that we are facing. And this, again, you need to know the nature of yourself. Are you a person who get mad easily? So you may have this obstacle more. Are you a person who always, entertain yourself, thinking of women, thinking of shopping, this and that? So you may have more of this one, like same pleasure mind. So either one, the mind cannot be calm. Or you always falling asleep every time that you sit. You know that you are habituate the mind to be what we call sloth and torpor. That means the mind cannot be fresh, always falling asleep. You cannot stay awake when you meditate. Or you are a person who very talkative. When you talk too much and you come and sit down, again, the mind cannot be relaxed because of the thing that we say. Doubt, this always comes later on when you start having good experience, the mind being calm, and then doubt usually come last, and you have question about your own practice. So keep this in mind. They will come when we meditate. The first 2, sense desire and ill will. Sense desire derived from the lopa or raga. This is one of the major defilement, right? Ill will is come from hate or anger. You have an angry mind. And these 3 is come from ignorance. Okay, so there are 3 major defilement that run our minds as we have been learning so far. Greed, hatred, and delusion or ignorance. They are here in the 5 hindrances. As a meditator, our job is to deal with them, to suppress them, and eventually to remove them. Okay? It doesn't matter how long you have been sitting, you are dealing with this homework. Each session that you sit, one of them may show up, maybe 2 of them, maybe all of them will show up in each session that you sit. And your job is to know the nature of your mind and how come I always thinking like this? How come I always falling asleep in the afternoon session? So all of this, you need to be very careful and pay close attention of your own practice. we will keep on coming back to this. This is the very important foundation as a good meditator to understand and how to deal with this more effectively. In this particular sutra, the Buddha shared his wisdom to the monks, because when the monks meditate, they have a problem with unwholesome thought. So when you sit, you have a good mood, all of a sudden that thought comes and the mind get distracted, and the mind cannot come back to the same object that you have been using. So the Buddha said, okay, I will introduce you the 5 strategies that dealing with the distracting thought, unwholesome thought that arise when you meditate, and that's the idea. So let's see how the Buddha teach these 5 strategies to the monks. This is the exact word that appears in the Buddhist text in the English version, but please also keep in mind that every translator, they translate from Pali to English. So when you study by yourself, so keep in mind that you cannot rely on one translator. If you have doubt or doesn't make sense, you may read a few from different translators to make sure that your understanding is correct. So the Buddha start off the teaching in this sutra like this. So I like you to see how the sutra look like. So when you read yourself, you get familiar with it. Thus I have heard, that means someone have heard the teaching of the Buddha. In this case, is Ananda, his personal attendant Ananda, Venerable Ananda. At one time, the Buddha was staying near Savatthi in Jeta Grove. Here, you may not understand what it is, but this is a typical situation at the beginning of almost all sutra. The Buddha stays somewhere, and then the Buddha talk about something to someone. In this sutra, the Buddha was staying at Savatthi. Savatthi is the name. Okay, it's the name of the city. At Jeta Grove, what is Jeta Grove? Grove is like the monastery here, Anatha Bindika monastery, or the Jeta Grove. The Jeta is a short term for Chetawan. Chetawan is the name of the monastery. What Chetawan? Which donated by Anatha Bindika, the foremost male supporter of the Buddha, Anatha Bindika. There, the Buddha addressed the bhikkhu. Bhikkhu means monks. Bhikkhus, monks. And they replied, Venerable Sir, yes sir. The Buddha said this, bhikkhu, a bhikkhu commit to the higher mind, the key word here is the higher mind, should focus on the 5 foundations of meditation from time to time. And what 5? Okay, this is the beginning. When you read, you should imagine yourself back to the Buddha time and imagine yourself in that particular situation as if you were in front of the Buddha, you were among those monks that the Buddha was talking to. Okay, in Anatha Bindika monastery, the Buddha was there, the monks sit there, the Buddha sit here, and then he start asking the question. They greeting each other, and the Buddha asks, oh bhikkhu, a bhikkhu who commit to the higher mind should focus on the 5 foundations of meditation from time to time. We have no idea what it is. Sometimes we need to get back to the original version, which is the Pali. Higher mind refer to something called Atichitta. 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 What is Atichitta? Chitta is the mind. Ati means what? Excellent means higher mind, means supreme. Atichit means the higher mind, the excellent mind, the mind that have been developed. When we were born, each one of us, we have body and the mind. This is a regular mind. Otherwise, we cannot live, right? We have the mind, so we can feel, we can think, we can say things. But the higher mind, it did not come at birth. You need to develop it. And your job as a monk is to develop the quality of your mind until it becomes the higher mind. For example, let's say you are a stingy person. You don't like to give, you don't like to share. This is the regular mind as you as an individual. And later on you study the Dhamma, you realize that, we should share, we should give. You understand the Dhamma, then you start practicing your mind, you start developing the quality of your mind to give. So your mind become higher. The question is, how long can you continue to develop that? How long can you sustain that higher state of mind? That's another thing. You never meditate, you always get mad, get cranky, you don't like to forgive, you always You make judgment to someone all the time. You have a very judgmental mind. And then all of a sudden you came across meditation. Someone teach you how to meditate. You join the class few times, okay, a few weeks, then you start noticing, hey, my mind is better. Now I'm feel more peace and more calm and more relaxed. And so the mind quality has changed to be higher, to be better. All the way, the ultimate goal is to develop the mind until the mind is completely pure from the defilement, from greed, hatred, delusion. And this state of mind is called Nibbana. So the mind has achieved the highest quality as a human being, can develop. This is the highest level. It's called the higher mind. So day one you may be here, and you slowly develop the quality of the mind, is getting higher until you go to the highest Nibbana. Okay, this is the process. It's called Atichitta. And the 5 foundation of meditation, when you go back to the text, you may come across the word called nimitta or sign. It's called nimitta, the meditation object that you use. So this translator, he choose to use the word, the foundation of meditation, when it's come to the meaning of the word nimitta. There are several ways to translate the word nimitta. This is the first one. The Buddha talked to the monk, and the Buddha said, if you are developing your mind to up to the level of higher mind or Atichitta, you should focus on these 5 nimitta from time to time. Just a sideline information here. This is the first temple in Buddhism offered by King Pimpisan in Ratchakrut. The first monastery is called ven.Narongchai or Veruvan. And later on in Savatthi, the same town, there are 2 supporters. Okay, the first is Anatta Bindika, the foremost male supporter of the Buddha, offered the monastery or the temple called Jetawan. In the same city, the foremost female supporter named Visakha offered the monastery called Buparam. Okay, in the last 12 years of the Buddha, before he passed away, he either stay one of these temples because he get old. Sometime morning he stay in Jetawan, and in the afternoon he stay in Pimparam. Only these 2 places, okay, supported by this great male and female supporter. Sometimes the sutra may talk about this monastery, sometimes talk about this monastery. It depends on where did he go and who did he talk to. And then the Buddha said, take a bhikkhu who is focusing on some foundation of meditation. We call nimitta. Again, if you focus on some nimitta or the meditation object that you use, that give rise to what? To bad, unskillful thoughts connected with desire, hate and delusion. Okay, greed, hatred, delusion. This is the first instruction. He said that bhikkhu should focus on some other foundation, something else of meditation, connected with something opposite or something skillful. As they do, those bad thoughts are giving up and come to the end. Their mind becomes still internally, it settle, merge and become immersed in samadhi. So many things are happening here. So when you read, you take your time, okay? No rush. Try to decode what the Buddha means behind each text that we read. Okay, imagine that a monk sit there, practice meditation, whatever meditation object that he used, and all of a sudden there's a bad thought and unskillful thought arise. The Buddha suggests that you should focus on something else. Okay, literally that's what it means. You should focus on something else, and then this will help you to give up, to come to the end of those bad thoughts. If you switch to something else, then your mind will become still and then immersed in samadhi. If you read first time, second time, this may be how much we understand. Okay, depending on your experience. And I like to suggest, I make some suggestion here. When you read the sutra, I like you to develop something called the detective mind. To detect, don't just read and believe. Because someone has to write it, right? Every book, somebody has to write it. The book cannot be written by itself. That means human being put things in word and print it. It become a book, including the Buddhist text, including the Bible, including the Quran, every books on this world created by humans. So when you read it, you don't just believe every sentence, every word. You try to decode the real meaning behind this. What the Buddha actually wants me to understand. If you don't understand, you go to another translator, maybe a few, then you start seeing. When you read different vocabulary, you start understand, oh, okay, maybe this is what it means. Maybe this is what missing. Let's zoom into this one more time. When the monks focus on meditation, when he sit and meditate, he focus on one meditation object or nimitta, and all of a sudden there's some thought arrives, unskillful thought. Maybe the thinking of lust, thinking of anger, thinking of doubt, or falling asleep, or you think of the 5 hindrances that we just talked about. Maybe one of these appear in your meditation. So when it appears, the Buddha suggests that, okay, you focus on some other meditation object. Then those thoughts will be given up or ended. What do we learn so far? What do you normally do when you sit and you have the bad thought arise in your mind? Unskillful. Unskillful can be like you think of hurting someone, you don't like something, you agitated, or you feel like, oh, I want to go watch the movie, I want to talk to that person, I want to go buy this, I want to go eat that. So it can be anything. It's considered unskillful. You as a monk, you shouldn't be thinking of this kind of thought. That's the idea. So when you meditate and all of a sudden you start feeling that, well, this morning someone said something bad to me in your meditation, and then you might get agitated. Let's say you use breathing meditation. You breathe in, breathe out, you feel relaxed, no thought, happy, become peaceful, become the mind very super peaceful and very still. And all of a sudden, hey, that guy said something bad to me during breakfast, and now you lose your concentration with your breath. The mind go after that thought of, hey, I don't like what he said to me, and then you cannot control it. You cannot come back to your breath. What do? What do you normally do? You just continue to entertain that thought. Oh, I'm gonna finish meditation, I'm gonna go back and ask him why did he say that. Or how can you deal with this? How can you bring the mind back to your breath and continue meditate? It's not an easy task. It isn't. The mind doesn't like to be forced. It doesn't like to be forced. One is start thinking, and then you said, stop thinking. And there is no button to hit, hey, stop. We cannot do that. You're going to have to do something else. So first time I read this, I feel like, can I actually do this? Can we actually do this as the Buddha suggests? Okay, you breathe in and out, 1, 2, 3, 4, in, 1, 2, 3, 4, out, your mind is peaceful, relaxed, and then you start hating someone that says something bad to you. According to this instruction, I let go my primary meditation object and I go back to something else. Maybe walking meditation, maybe visualizing object, not the breath. Does it help? How do you know it helps? You sit, you cannot stop the mind from that bad thought. You get up from your seat, you start walking. You think it will work or it may not work. So you have to think, how can you put this into practice as a meditator? Okay, this is what the Buddha suggests. Okay, bad thought arise. You should focus on something else. That means you let go your primary meditation object and move to something else. And then that thought will go away. Let's say you sit 30 minutes, it doesn't work. The thought's still there. So you get up and you start walking. This is what it means here. This is how I understand. And as you walk, do you think that that thought will go away? The thought of hating that person that says something bad to you as you walk. You may be walking, getting mad, getting angry. It's still there, right? So we have to think deeper. We cannot take the Buddha word lightly. Oh, okay, understand. It's okay, change the meditation object, then the thought will go away. It's not easy like that. So what do? Bad thought arise. We have been talking all kind of stuff of technique in the past of how to deal with thought, how to deal with sleepiness, how to deal with sense desire or agitated mind. How can you put into practice? Okay, I'd like you to reflect on that. Okay, we'll come back to this in a moment. And he gives the simile, the example. It is like a skilled carpenter or the apprentice who knock out or extracts a large peg, this one, with a finer peg. okay, with the small one. So how can you remove this peg? Is you need the little one, the small peg, right, to peg into the wood, and then you can remove this thing out. In the same way, a bhikkhu should focus on some other foundation. You focus on some other nimitta or foundation of meditation connected with skillful, and then you can remove that unskillful thinking. So you have this in your mind when you meditate. The Buddha said, you think of something else opposite, then you can remove this thing out of your mind. That's the idea. But in the reality, it might be difficult. Okay? We don't all of a sudden change the primary object. Right? When we meditate, we have 1 hour session. You sit there for 30 minutes and then you start having the bad thought. What you normally do, or what I normally do, I develop mindfulness, right? So I know now my mind is not with the breath. It's with that man already, someone that I don't like. As long as I know my mind is not here, that means I am mindful that my mind is not here. And where is it? It's over there with that guy. So this is mindfulness. So I look at it, look at my mind, that mind is not here with the breath. So what I can do is I allow myself to reflect on the nature of myself, that hey, your mind is supposed to be here, not there. So I slowly welcome the mind back to the breath and start counting again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And another 2 minutes, it go out again to that person again. As long as I am mindful, I can catch that moment that hey, it's about to go after that man. So I catch it, I bring it back to the breath and start counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I can be with my breath for another 3-5 minutes, and then it go out again. My job is to bring it back to the breath again. So I don't just get up and do walking meditation. This is how I do. So when it happened to you, how do you deal with this unskillful thought? But in this case, why did the Buddha suggest that, hey, monk, if this happened to you, you change the technique, you change nimitta, you change to another meditation object right away. How can this benefit us? How can we actually put this into our own practice? Let's analyze this together. I think it's very important. I just want to share with you how I approach the sutra, okay? So you can maybe benefit you when you study on your own. In this case, is it possible that when a monk meditates, you meditate today, let's stick with the same example. Someone says something bad during breakfast, and then you come to meditate in a 9:30 session to 11 o'clock. You have 2 hours slot to sit, and then the mind keep on thinking of that person. I cannot let go. I hate him. Why did he say that to me? I did not do something bad. So the mind keep on clinging on that word that he said. Cannot let go. First time in the morning session, the 9 o'clock session, that person, the feeling toward that person is still strong. And then in the afternoon, as you come back and sit, you still getting mad with that person. And then in the evening, you think that you can let go, but no, it's not. The hated feeling, the agitated feeling is still there in the evening too. Even though you try to come back to the breath 10 times, 1,000 times, it stay for 1 second, 1 minute, it go after that man again. Morning session, afternoon session, evening session, cannot let go. If you cannot let go, then maybe it's time for you to pause your primary meditation object. Okay, maybe the breath doesn't work, maybe object doesn't work. Maybe you need to take a look of the other object that's more skillful. Okay, the Buddha said skillful. Skillful is something beneficial, something that can fix that angry mind, that agitated mind. So you may be share loving kindness before you sit 3 times, morning, afternoon, evening. Instead of hurry yourself to get back to the primary meditation object, you can share loving kindness. You can visualize his face. You can do your best to share your loving kindness, understand the nature of life, bring your wisdom into practice that help calm the mind down. And if the mind come back to be calm and relaxed, then you can go back to your primary meditation object as you normally do, because you have been doing this and you know it worked for you, but today it just doesn't work. And this few days it just doesn't work. And this week it just doesn't work because I don't like that man. I don't like that person. Or if the mind go after the woman, something beautiful, you go arms round in a village, you meet with the villager, you look at her face, and then you feel like, oh, the person is very beautiful. And you come back to the temple as you eat, as you do things, and when you come to meditate, that person face, the woman face still in your mind. You cannot let go. It's called sense desire. Perhaps you should think of something else. You may apply, we call asubha. Asubha object is you meditate on something that the ugliness of the body. Remember when you meditate, the preceptor teach you the 5 objects, right? Kesa, loma, nakha, thanta, tacho. Kesa mean head hair, loma mean body hair, nakha mean nail, right? Thanta mean teeth, tacho mean skin. When you reflect on these 5 objects, oh, there's nothing beautiful here in the body. It's ugly. And then the mind lessen that lustful feeling toward the woman that you saw in the morning. Okay, this is some of the things that I like to share when to approach to the sutra. Now, if you do that, you change the meditation object, you change the nimitta. And the Buddha said, suppose the bhikkhu is focused on something else already, some other foundation of meditation connected with the skillful, but the bad and unskillful thought keep on coming back, that connected to desire, hate, or delusion. Sometimes they use greed, anger, or ignorance, whatever they use, but it means the same thing. They keep coming up. What do you do? And now the Buddha gives the second instruction. Okay, if you change the technique, you change the nimitta, and they still keep on coming to you, now you should examine the drawback of those thoughts. You should examine, you should think about it, you should ponder about it, of the drawback or the unbenefit of those thoughts that is arising in your mind. So if you do that, those are unskillful, okay, they are bad, right? They result in suffering as they do so. If you do this, okay, this is what should happening. The bad thoughts are giving up, it's come to the end, okay, the mind becomes still, okay, it's settle, merge, and become immersed in samadhi. Again, this is repeat, right? When you read the sutra, you may come across many repetition. So the sutra is only like about 1 A4 page, but there are a certain part that is repeated. The Buddha said, okay, if you have bad thought, you change the object of meditation. And if you already change and that bad thought still there, now you examine the drawbacks of those thoughts. The bad thought will go away if you do this. That's what it means in this paragraph. Okay, you see the word samadhi for the second time, right? Samadhi, what is samadhi then? Become immersed in samadhi. Samadhi usually translates to meditation in English, right? Okay, which is sometimes very confusing. This is, again, we can reference it back to the word higher mind, atichitta. When you develop the mind become immersed in samadhi or in the higher concentration. The mind stay concentrate with your meditation object. You feel peace, you feel calm, you feel happy, you feel relaxed. That's the idea of immersed in samadhi. How do you know that you're in the state of samadhi, that the mind is in the state of samadhi? Okay, there's a word called piti and sukha. Okay. Piti and sukha, which is difficult to translate, have the direct English vocabulary that represent these two words. Okay, it's about being happy. Piti, you feel, sometimes translates to rapture, to joy. Sukha translates to happiness. But what's the difference between joy and happiness? We still have a hard time try to explain, right? This is definitely positive feeling. Samadhi means you feel happy, you feel joyful. There's no thought in the mind. It's just good feeling. This is the idea of someone immersed in the samadhi. Examine the drawback of this thought and hope that the bad thought will go away. The Buddha gives the simile to the monk. Suppose there was a woman or a man, okay, who was young, useful. That means the person is young. If the crops of snake or dog or even a human were hung around their necks. You think of the garland. You put the dead snake around your neck. they would be horrifying, repelled, disgusted. In the same way, the bhikkhu, okay, you should examine the drawback of those thoughts, and then the thought will go away. Who in the world would put the dead snake around their neck? Right? It's ugly, it's horrifying, it disgusts us. We wouldn't do that. This is the idea how the Buddha compare. So when you look at the thought that bad, oh, I'm a monk, I shouldn't be thinking of a woman. I shouldn't be having this hatred mind toward the person who says something bad to me. I'm a Buddhist monk. I'm a man of peace. I'm a man of precept. I should let go those, desire or hatred mind. I don't want to have this snake around my neck. I just cannot. So I'm just going to throw it away. That's the idea in concept. Okay, but in practical, it's quite difficult, right? Okay, and what next? Now suppose that bhikkhu is examining the drawback of the thought, but you examine it already, but the thought keep on coming back. Okay, the thought that connect to desire, hatred, delusion keep coming up to you. Then the Buddha gives the third suggestion. He said they should try ignore and forget about them. As they do so, the thought will be giving up and they will come to the ends, and then the mind will be immersed in the samadhi again. This is repeat. I sit, the bad thought happen, I change the nimitta or the meditation object. I change, but the bad thoughts still exist. So I reflect on the drawback. I did that, but they still keep on coming back. And now the next step, the Buddha said, ignore them, forget them. Don't pay attention to them. And he compared to like this. Suppose there was a person with good eyesight. You have a good eye. You see something that you don't like. Undesirable sight came into your vision. What do? If you don't want to see, you close your eye. They close their eyes, or you look to different direction. Then you don't see something that you don't want to see. In the same way, this is how you deal with the bad thought. If the bad thought is there, you ignore them. You just let them go. Is it easy? No, right? We cannot just go away. I don't want to hate you. I don't want to love you. I don't want to like you. I don't want to think this. I don't want to think that. We cannot just all of a sudden cut them off. This is the skill that need to be mastered. But we cannot overlook, okay, or take the teaching of the Buddha lightly. Why did he suggest us to do this? There must be a way to practice according to his teaching, right? Ignore them, forget them. Is it possible for you to develop this ability or this skill when every time that the thought come back, you ignore them? All of a sudden that the thought arrives, you pull the mind back to the breath, you pull the mind back to your meditation object. If you keep on doing this, eventually again it will become the habit of your mind to let go whatever come and challenge you. There are details to take a look. This is definitely is a skill that can be developed, to ignore and forget the thought. You cut off, you let go. I don't care about that thought. Give you example. Are you a person who always on time of doing things according to the schedule? By being on time, you train yourself to let go. You train yourself to cut off. Let's say if I'm working on my computer, okay, and it's time for breakfast at 7:30, I still keep on working. I say, oh, I'll do it. I'll give me 5 minutes, and then give me another 5 minutes. Give me another 5 minutes. I will not cut off my work to go eat. Or it's 10 o'clock, I'm supposed to turn off the light and go back to bed, but I still work on something. Give me 5 minutes, give me 10 minutes. If I keep on doing this every day, I get another habit, the habit of give me another 5 minutes, a habit of procrastinate, of do what I'm supposed to do according to the time that I set. So 10 o'clock, close computer, turn off the computer, go to bed. Or close the computer and go to eat. Or stop what you do and go to do what you're supposed to do. Okay, this is self-discipline. You can do that. If you can do this in your daily life, you train your mind to cut off little by little. There are many ways to develop this skill. Okay, this is just one example. When it's time to eat, you go eat. When it's time to sleep, you go to sleep. And when every time the thoughts show up, you let them go. Okay, you let go a little bit here and there. You fight with it here and there. Eventually, the mind will be more obedient and it will stay still. Now, suppose that bhikkhu is ignoring. You forget them, you ignore them, but again they keep coming back. The bad, unskillful thought connected with desire, hate, delusion. You see, it's repeat, right? Keep on coming back. Now the next instruction the Buddha said, they should focus on stopping the formation of thought. This is interesting, what it means. As they do, the bad thoughts are giving up, come to the end, the mind becomes still, and you will be immersed in samadhi. Again, this is repeat, right? Repeat. The key word on this paragraph is here, this instruction that the Buddha gave. All of this, the Buddha gave one step, okay, one step at a time. You need to follow the first step first. If it doesn't work, you go to the second step. If the second doesn't work, you go to the third. And now we come to the fourth step. Here he said, you should focus on stopping the mental formation or the formation of thought. This one we need to find a way to interpret, okay, what the Buddha means. Let's see the example that he gave. Suppose there was a person was walking quickly, then he think, why am I walking so quickly? Why don't I slow down? Then he will slow down. And when he slow down, he asks himself, why am I walking slowly? Why don't I stand still? Then he stands still. And then, why am I standing? Why don't I sit down? So he sit down. He will think, why am I sitting down? Why don't I lie down? So eventually he lie down. And so that a person would reject successively, okay, the coarser posture and adopt the more subtle ones. This is how you deal with mental formation. What it means by mental formation. There's so many thoughts in the mind. So you slow down your thinking process by ask yourself, why am I thinking this? You reflect yourself, where is this thinking come from? Why am I getting mad at that person? Can I do something else? Can I have another option to deal with this? Can I forgive him, or can I share loving kindness, or can I come back to the breath, or whatever it is? You kind of penetrate to the bottom of the thinking. Where did that thinking come from? Now you examine it. You try to stop this mental formation. It's about how your thought is being formed, okay, from what you see, what you hear, what you smell, what you taste, what you touch. It's formed in your mind. It's called mental formation. Now you cannot let go, okay, the angry toward that man. It's still there. So the Buddha said, okay, you reflect on it deeply, okay. Ask yourself, where this thinking come from? Why did he say that? Or did I do something wrong? That's why he said something like that to me. And then you start saying, oh, okay, maybe I say something bad to him first, or maybe my action without intention that he may misunderstanding of what I did. That's why he says something like that. Oh, okay, now you understand. When you understand, your mind becomes soft, and eventually you can let go those, agitated mind toward that person. That's the idea. Okay, now we come to the last step. The Buddha said, oh, you do all of this, you focusing the mind, okay, you reflect on it, where the bad thought come from, but they're still there. The unskillful thought, connected with desire, hate, delusion, keep coming up. Now, the last instruction, the Buddha said, with your teeth clenched and tongue pressed against the roof of the mouth, they should squeeze, squash, and torture mind with the mind. And when a monk do this, okay, the bad thought will be giving up and come to the end. And then the mind can immerse in the samadhi. That means the thoughts go away. This is quite extreme, right? You use force. You use a forceful technique to fight with the thought and to let the thought go away. You see, sometimes, according to this teaching, sometimes it's necessary to use the forceful method when dealing with the thought. No matter how hard you try, you still getting mad, you still thinking of, the same desire toward the woman that you met in the morning. And now, late morning still there, afternoon meditation, the thought still there, evening still there, even before go to bed, you sit for another 30 minutes. It's still there. It doesn't go away. And now how can you fight with it? This is the technique that the monk back then used, and it worked for many people. That's why the Buddha mentioned here. Okay, you please don't be confused with the self-mortification. Okay, it's not the same. This is you examine it, you reflect on it, you use your wisdom that, hey, I run out of all the tools to deal with this, so I'm going to fight with you by forcing my physical part. When you have pain somewhere in the body, it seems like you distract the mind from the thought and come back to the teeth, come back to the tongue. When you press it, you force your mind to be here, not that man, not that woman, to be here in your mouth. But how long can you keep doing that? That's another thing. So this is not for everyone. When we study the text, we need to again reflect on it wisely, okay, of why the Buddha say that, or is this work for me, or do I have to do this? He compared to the strong man, okay, the strong man who grasps a weaker man by head, by throat, by shoulder, squeeze, squash, and torture. Okay, the same way like the man, the stronger man force the weaker man, okay, and he can do whatever he wants with that man. This is how you force the body, okay, you force the mind to stop thinking of that bad things. That's the idea of this paragraph, and eventually the thought will come to the end, okay? And again the mind will immerse in samadhi because the thought it's go away. In summary, the Buddha said the bhikkhu who is focusing on some foundation or some nimitta or some meditation object that give rise to the bad unskillful thought connected to desire, hate and delusion, if you meditate on that object and the bad thought arise, so you should focus on some other nimitta or some other meditation. And then if it doesn't work, you change, okay, you move to the next step, you try to ignore and forget about them, those thoughts. If it doesn't work again, you stop, okay, the mental formation, you examine it deeply. And then if it doesn't work again, you start using the forceful technique by, clench your teeth and press your tongue and things like that. And eventually those thoughts will go away, giving up, come to the end, and the mind will be settle and become immersed in samadhi, and that's the idea. So when you meditate, your goal is to immerse in samadhi, to be calm, to be relaxed, to be at peace. But it's not easy at all that every time we meditate that we can bring the mind back to the body and have the mind stay still inside the body as we want it to. And these are the 5 instructions that the Buddha gave. And the very last paragraph on this sutra, the Buddha said, this is called a bhikkhu who is a master of the way of thought. Quite interesting. He said they will think what they want to think, and they won't think what they don't want to think. Interesting, right? They have cut off the craving or tanha, united with the feather or sangyojana, and by right comprehending on the conceit, they have made the end of suffering. This refers to the arahant mind or nibbana. This may be something new information for us, right? From what we learned from this paragraph, that means the mind can be controlled, even though the mind is the wandering elements. It's run by feeling, it's run by craving all the time. The mind cannot be free from craving, ordinary mind. So if the bhikkhu or a man who master this technique, eventually he will be able to control the way he think. He can think what he want to think, and he can stop what he doesn't want to think. That's the goal. That's why you can immerse to the higher samadhi. You can develop the higher mind because you can control the way the mind think. And when we can control the way the mind think, that means we cut off the tanha, because tanha cannot run the mind, including the feather or the sangyojana, which is maybe something new to many of us today. Anyway, this is what appears in the Buddhist text. And my teacher said this paragraph doesn't exist in the Chinese Tipitaka. Okay, it's only appear in the Pali Tipitaka. So that means maybe someone may add it. Anyway, we don't know that, but we can reflect on it. Okay, that means the mind can be trained, and the trained mind bring happiness. If you don't train the mind will be wandering all day long. Like 50% of your time each day, the mind will stay outside the body, thinking of something else all the time. And then when you come to meditate, the mind cannot be still. You cannot immerse in the samadhi or have the higher mind. So in summary, there are 5 instructions that the Buddha gave, right? According to this sutra, when you meditate and then you have an unskillful thought arise, bad thought arise, you switch to something opposite. Okay, if you think of have lustful mind, you may be thinking of the ugliness of the body, change the object to that meditation object. Or if you have hatred mind, you can thinking of loving kindness. If you have a doubtful mind or ignorant mind, you can think of something that can bring the clarity of the mind. And if it doesn't work, you contemplate on the drawback of that thought that arrives. If it still doesn't work, you let go. Okay, you ignore them. You close your eye. If you don't want to see something, you close your eyes. And if it still doesn't work, okay, now you sit there and check, hey, where did that thought come from? How can I, you go deep to the root, you try to find where did that thought come from. You analyze it. Then you see, oh, the reason I getting mad with that man because he misunderstanding of my action. And then, you may go talk to him and then you make sure you and him understand each other, and then, the thought go away, right? And then if it still doesn't work, you use the forceful effort by press your teeth and press your tongue to the roof of the mouth, and eventually that thought will go away, according to the sutra. Every sutra that you read, you should ask yourself, how can I apply what I just learned from the sutra? Don't just read, and oh, I got it, and don't know how to put into practice. So I already explained this. It's not easy to do this, to all of a sudden change your primary meditation object. Even though you may be able to change, but that thought may still there. Okay, you need to, like I said, to apply some other technique. Okay, this is what Luang Pi has been talk about. I share with some of you already. So let me bring them together and relate it to this sutra, then to see if you can put them into practice. Whatever stream there are in the world, stream is the defilement. Okay, greed, hatred, delusion, craving, okay, tanha or sangyojana, whatever they are, all of them in this world. Mindfulness or sati is their prevention. That is the restraint of stream. See, the Buddha give us the tool to deal with the defilement. By wisdom or sampachanya, they are shut off. This is a very small teaching of the sutra, that's of the teaching of the Buddha, that's very powerful. I think we can apply this to what we just learned. Because the bad thought come from greed, hatred, delusion. If we track it down, it will come from these three main sources. Lustful mind, hatred mind, sleepiness mind, doubtful mind. They come from these three major defilements. And the Buddha said, oh, all of this in front of you, if you are mindful, okay, you can be protected, you can be prevented from the bad thought, okay, that come and get you. And by wisdom, having sati and sampachanya, when you have sati and sampachanya or mindful and wisdom, they shut off. They cannot hurt you. This is, to me, it's very short and powerful teaching that we can use. The question is, how can we develop mindfulness and how can we develop the clear comprehension? That's another thing that you need to figure it out. In another teaching that fit perfectly in this sutra, the goal of us as a meditator, we want to get to the higher mind, to have the right immersion, immerse in the samadhi, the state of mind being concentrated. We may be talking about the jhana, the first, the second, the third, the fourth, all the way up to the eighth jhana. This is the higher mind, all the way up to the mind free from defilements, right? The goal is to get there. But when you meditate, you cannot get there. The mind cannot be focused. In that 30 minutes that you sit, in that 1 hour that you sit, the mind cannot be focused because of the defilement, because of the hindrances that show up here and there during your meditation. So what do? As you see here, the Buddha laid out the step from another teaching that he gave to another group of monks. If you want to have a good meditation, the first step, you need to be mindful. I said mindful awareness, so I put two things together, mindfulness and the awareness together. It's called sati and sampachanya, or mindful awareness. And then the second step, it's when you're mindful, it helps you to develop the sense of shame and moral fear, or hiri-ottappa, what you should do, what you should not do. And with this thing being developed, this is the third step, sense restraints. If you ask yourself, where did those thoughts came from? You may be surprised that it come to you because you don't have a sense control. You don't have a good sense control of what you see, what you hear, what you smell, what you taste. That's why it passed through that door. It passed through the eye, the sound passed through the ear, as go to the mind, and then you get mad to that sound. It's a beautiful picture go to your eye, beautiful form, it's go to the mind, and then you like that form, like that person. then when you meditate, the mind cannot let go of the form that you saw before. So if you have sense control, if you guard your sense door well, you will have less distracting thought. Definitely. If you go arms round, you keep your eye fixed, you don't look around, you don't pay attention to the people that you meet. You go there, you get the food, you keep the blessing, and then you come back. So you have less thought, right? Instead of another monk go to the same route, walking and look around and talking to the people, and look at the woman here and there. So he come back with a lot of information, negative information. Then the mind cannot be calm. Okay? And number 4 is being ethical. And number 5, then you can have the right concentration. So here, I think this step is very important. And this is the second one. And then it helps you to have a good meditation. You cannot overlook the importance of mindfulness and awareness in order for you to be successful in your meditation practice. Alright? If you have good foundation of mindfulness, you are a mindful person. You will having the sense of moral shame and moral fear of doing something bad. Okay? And that help you to develop something called the sense restraint. You will have ability to control what you should see, what you're not supposed to see, what you should hear, what you're not supposed to hear. It helps you to have a clean precept. When you have a clean precept, you have a good meditation. So all of these support each other. So this is another picture that I put together that maybe, I don't know if it helps you to understand much better. Your goal is to have good concentration. Samadhi is here. But the reason you cannot have good concentration because your mind is everywhere. Your mind is everywhere all day long. And the reason your mind is everywhere because you're not mindful enough of your daily activity, of what you see, what you talk. When you eat, you talk. When you talk too much, then the mind stays outside of your body. And the longer the mind stays outside, the more difficult the mind will come back when you meditate. See, people who talk too much usually don't have good meditation. That's why sometimes you may heard about the silent retreat, that people enter the silent retreat for 7 days, they're not allowed to talk. So when they don't talk, the mind, where does the mind go? Right? It has less option for the mind to go to talk. So you may talk to yourself, right? But the idea is to keep the mind, nearby the body. And the reason you don't have good concentration because you're not mindful enough. And the reason you're not very mindful because you don't usually pay attention, okay, of the way you live your life. You never develop this skill. So mindfulness and awareness support each other. Awareness is the integrating wisdom, the wisdom that help integrate mindfulness and concentration together. So when you focus on your breath, in and out, you know that you with your breath, and all of a sudden the thought come. As soon as you know that the thought come, you are mindful. The question is, when you know that the mind is not here, what do you do? Now is the duty of this guy, the awareness, the clear comprehension. Hey, slowly bring it back to the breath. And when you bring it back, try to find the balance. Am I happy? Am I relaxed? Am I breathing too hard, too short? How should I adjust until my body relaxes so the mind can stay still? This is the function of this guy, the awareness. Okay, you see how they support each other? And the idea is to have good concentration, to have good meditation. So 3 of these needs to be mastered. Plus this one as well. Persevere. If you plan to sit 1 hour, you sit 1 hour. You don't quit. If you keep on quitting, you will not be success. Oh, it's too hot. Oh, today no electricity. Today no air conditioning. Today it's raining. Maybe I just sit 10 minutes. You're supposed to sit 30 minutes, but you quit after 10 minutes. That's why you will not make progress in your meditation practice. Again, sense control is very important of what you see, what you hear, what you smell, what you taste, what you touch, and what you think. Everything that comes to your sense door will go to your mind, and then it becomes your thought. And it can be skillful thought, unskillful thought, good thought, a bad thought, a neutral thought. If you are mindful, sati is a mindfulness to catch that thought that arises in your mind when you see the object, when you hear the sound, or when you meditate and that thought show up. Your mindfulness is the element, okay, that its function is to catch that thought. Okay, oh, now this is good thought, this is bad thought, this is not good thought, bad. And then the clear comprehension or sampajanya is the wisdom element that telling you what to do with this. Okay, should I bring the mind back? How should I bring the mind back? Should I change the technique? Should I adjust my leg? Should I bring should I get up to the toilet first? Or this is the element, its function is to bring you back to the state of wholesomeness. Okay, they support each other, sati and sampachanya. This is the last one. For the mind that is difficult to subdue, hard to see, very certain, filtering wherever it will, the wise, as a meditator, us, the wise person, should guard the mind. The trained mind bring happiness, and untrained mind will bring suffering. So if you don't train yourself to guard your mind, you cannot have a good meditation as you expect, as you wish. Okay, you may have a good session today. You have peace, calm, relax. Today is nice rain, weather is perfect. Nothing much in the mind. In this 30 minutes or in the past 30 minutes, you have a very good concentration. You feel good about it, and you hope that you will have the same experience in the evening. But when we done this session, you go to the dining hall. You start having a soft drink. You start talking to your friend, and your friends start talking about some other stuff. About the world, about the economic, about the politics, about the business, and then you sit there with them, listen to them, and even enjoy their conversation. And when you come to the evening session, do you think you can have the same good feeling as you had in the afternoon? Probably not, because you don't guard your mind. You don't be aware of what you think and what you talk to your friends outside the classroom. So when you are in the retreat, that is why usually in the meditation retreat environments, the people don't talk a lot. There's not much noise in the retreat center. Here in this monastery, I think we have a pretty conducive environment with lot of trees, with nice accommodation, with the dining hall, meditation hall. It's up to you how to utilize this place to help you to develop the quality of the mind, to lift up the quality of the mind, to have the higher mind, find more peace of mind during your training. Okay? Alright, rejoice in your merit. Any questions so far?